Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with the Spain news update. And it seems that Spain has finally turned the corner as far as the pandemic is concerned, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now, let's get into the news, and as I said, it seems that Spain has finally turned the corner as far as the pandemic is concerned. Incidence rates of the virus are at their lowest point for a long time now, and according to this headline from El País, Spain is beginning to leave the pandemic behind and to live with the coronavirus. Spain will not have to wait for herd immunity to put the pandemic behind it. With 4 out of every 5 citizens immunized and a percentage of over 95% among the vulnerable population, the country is entering a new phase in which living with the virus will be part of everyday life. The new, more contagious variants and the persistence of unvaccinated population groups, 5.2 million children under 12 years of age without approved serum, but also 4.6 million people over that age who have not yet received any doses, lead experts to consider it almost impossible to eradicate. Outbreaks will continue to occur and infections will reach vaccinated people, but the circulation of the pathogen will slow down and severe cases will fall to the point where COVID becomes just another infectious disease like influenza is now. So finally, after 18 long months, Spain is beginning to live with this virus. With the majority of the population vaccinated and 95% of the vulnerable population vaccinated, as we saw in the text, we're moving into a new phase. And as other countries have been doing over the last 6 months or so, we're just going to have to live with this virus now like we live with the flu. Now, the group of people in Spain that have been living through the pandemic as if it were nothing serious, the partakers in the Botellón, are back to their old tricks. And a huge Botellón in Barcelona moved to the beaches and left 30 people arrested and 39 injured on a third night of incidents. Some 30,000 people gathered early this morning on Barcelona's beaches during the Merced festivities to go binge drinking, as the Plaza España was shielded by police officers on a night in which there were repeated scenes of violent robbery and vandalism, including the burning of vehicles, 14 motorbikes and a bicycle, and the smashing of shop windows. 2 restaurants and a shop in the Olympic Village were also ransacked, according to the Deputy Mayor for Security, Albert Batlle. The incidents have resulted in 30 arrests and 39 injured. Those arrested are related to violent robbery, robbery with force, theft, attacks on police officers, and public disorder. And on the topic of the Botellón in Spain, the Health Minister Ms. Diaz has warned against the weekend's binge drinking parties, saying that vaccines do their job, but they can't do it on their own. The Minister of Health, Carolina Diaz, has referred to the proliferation of macrobotellones during the last weekends throughout the country, warning the younger sector of the population that vaccination is not enough to guarantee safety from possible contagion. Vaccines do their job, but they cannot do it alone, she said. So botellones, or huge street drinking parties, still causing problems around the country. The one that we saw there in Barcelona, some 30,000 people on the beaches there, vandalism, robberies, and other things like that being associated to these parties. And it seems that there is just no way to stop these parties from happening. I thought that one of the ideas of opening up nightlife again was to try to stop these parties, but it doesn't seem to be working yet. And basically it's just got to a stage where a lot of young people in this country are out of control. Now, Madrid Premier Isabel Diaz Ayuso is on the road and she's visiting the United States promoting Madrid. As we can see here, Ayuso promotes Madrid on her tour of the United States and describes indigenism as new communism. The president of the Community of Madrid, Isabel Diaz Ayuso, has begun her trip to the USA, where she is seeking to reinforce the image of the region as a magnet for companies and projects. In this way, she will explain the low taxation policies that the Madrid community has been applying for the last 17 years, and at the same time, she will defend the legacy of Spain and America against the Black Legend and the Manichaean revision of history that is being attempted with an alarming growth of indigenism and populism. According to the regional government in a press release, the president of Madrid has detailed at a press conference in New York the 3 aspects of her institutional trip: the economic, political, and cultural part. So there we go, Madrid Premier Ms. Diaz Ayuso on tour in the United States, promoting the economic, political, and cultural aspects of this part of Spain, and also having a crack at all of the Spain bashers in the Americas at the moment, and calling the indigenism movement new communism. So Ms. Ayuso there not mincing her words in the US. Now, former Vice President of Spain and Podemos leader Pablo Iglesias made a rare appearance over the weekend, and his speech at a political event was interrupted with people asking, where is the change? Where is the change? Where is the progress? This was the welcome that Pablo Iglesias received at his first political event event after leaving his career at the head of Unidas Podemos. The event was hosted by the Communist Party of Spain, the PCE. The former vice president of the government experienced an uncomfortable moment that forced him to stop his speech. At the event, Iglesias took the opportunity to mention the tactical position of the United We Can party. Iglesias assures that the only way for the PSOE to remain in government is a pact with his own party, with Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya and with Bildu. So Mr. Iglesias, reappearing in public for the first time after the huge defeat he suffered at the Madrid elections, turning up at an event hosted by the Communist Party here in Spain, and let's just say that the reception was frosty. And obviously he hasn't been able to convince the true communists here in Spain that the party is heading in the right direction, or at least the direction that they want the party to head in. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain, and as we can see, the accumulated incidence rate is now down to 69. There are still 2,951 COVID patients hospitalised around the country, and there are 837 COVID patients currently in ICU. When it comes to the vaccination campaign, we can see that 76.58% of the population have completed vaccination, and just under 80% of the population have received at least one dose. Now, the future of the pension system and the retirement age here in Spain are making headlines today, and José Luis Escrivá believes that a cultural change is needed to work more between the ages of 55 and 75. The Minister for Inclusion, Social Security and Migration, José Luis Escrivá, believes that a cultural change is needed in Spain in terms of employment that will allow it to follow the clear trend in the rest of Europe, where people between the ages of 55 and 70 or 75 are working more and more. In an interview with newspaper Ara, José Luis Escrivá said about work, "At this age, for demographic and quality of life reasons, it is possible to work more, and Spain is a European anomaly. Not only are we not following this trend, but we are reducing the proportion of over 55s in employment." In the minister's opinion, this cultural element can be explained by the high level of unemployment in Spain, at least in comparison with other countries, and by a certain belief that youth employment replaces senior employment, but this is not the case, as it has been amply demonstrated, he said. So there we go, the Minister for Inclusion, Social Security and Migration, José Luis Escrivá, saying that Spain needs a cultural change when it comes to pre-retirements, and that Spain needs to follow the clear trend that is happening in the rest of Europe, where people work into their 70s. And I'm going to be honest, if there's one thing that does surprise me about this country, it's just how many people retire in their late 50s and early 60s. But as we all know, Spain is different. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Martin. Hola Stuart, muchas gracias por el video. We are coming over on the 14th of October and will be visiting Ronda via Málaga, Sevilla through Almería City, then on to San Juan. That article was sent to my inbox from The Guardian. Really good. Not going to hire a car. Mia has landed on her paws. Hopefully you will take her to the bar too. Tengo un buen fin de semana. Muchas gracias, amigo. Hola, Martín. Gracias por el comentario y espero que tengas un buen viaje. And the article that you are referring to, we saw the other day in the Guardian newspaper. Readers gave their choices on some of the best smaller cities here in Spain. I think we saw Salamanca, Zamora, Ronda, as you mentioned there. Cádiz was also mentioned, Toledo, Segovia, and a few other cities around Spain. And Mia, as you can see, has definitely landed on her paws coming into this household. And I'm really enjoying having a dog around the house again. One here from Salzac. My feeling is that you have been living in Madrid, Castilla too long. I live in Catalonia. Here, he is for at least 50% of the population a hero. So as outsiders, we should avoid taking side. Catalans po. Yes, Alzat, thanks for the comment, and not really sure what you were trying to say in that last sentence there. Maybe your phone ran out of battery while you were typing the comment. And I imagine that the pronoun he that you used there is referring to the fugitive Catalan independence leader Carles Puigdemont, who was arrested in Italy last week. And 50% of the population in Catalonia, or possibly less than 50% nowadays, think he is a hero, but in the rest of Spain, 95% of the population don't. But hey, when you live in the country for 22 years, pay your taxes here, bring up a family here, probably better to not take sides, right? One here from Jose Antonio. It always rains in most of Spain in September. On September the 1st, I posted here, it will heavy rain in 3 weeks again, thus it is a good year for olive oil and mushrooms. I'm not as sure we'll enjoy an Indian summer this year, but if so, it'd be in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, Jose Antonio, thanks for the comment, and you're right, it normally does rain quite a lot in Spain in September, or at least in most of the country that is, but this year the rains have been particularly heavy. Lots of places have been affected by serious flooding this year. We saw the other day how some towns in Extremadura were destroyed, some places in Huelva, and also some places in Mallorca as well. So the cold September rain common here in Spain, but this year it seems to be heavier than others. One here from Joe. What are your thoughts on Melbourne, Stuart? I have friends out there getting very worried about democracy and freedom rights. Thank you for all your hard work, mate. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Joe, thanks for the comment. And what are my thoughts about what's going on down there in Melbourne at the moment with all of the protests that have been going on in recent times? A few anti-vaxxers have been running amok. A few anti-lockdown protests have also been taking place. And as you mentioned, some of your friends are worried about their rights when it comes to democracy and freedom. And in my opinion, Melbourne again has a health crisis that they are struggling to get on top of, and unfortunately it has become politicised. And if there's one thing that we have learned throughout this pandemic, it's not a good idea to politicise a health crisis. So my advice to people in Melbourne would be to get vaccinated, learn to live with the virus, and stop comparing places like Sydney and Melbourne to North Korea, because they have absolutely nothing in common. One here from Martin. Spanish leaders have never been very popular or important outside Spain. I still remember one preposterous Spanish president sucking on his toothpick, feet on the table with a well-known president of the USA, equally preposterous. Yeah, Martin, thanks for the comment, and I'm not sure which Spanish leader you are referring to there. Maybe Mr. Aznar, and the time he visited George Bush's ranch down there in Texas, had a nice barbecue, and that's probably why he had the toothpick in his mouth. And it does seem that Spanish leaders are not very popular outside Spain, but as somebody else in the comment section also pointed out, they're not very popular here either. And finally, one here from the Ferg, long-time fan here, Stu, making the big move from London to Palma tomorrow. Keep the coverage coming, mate. Yeah, thanks for the comment and good luck with your move to Spain. Not sure whether you are moving to Palma de Mallorca or the island of La Palma down there in the Canaries, and if it is the latter, be careful. But whichever it is, good luck with your adventure. On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. We'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.